With another week of spring training in the books, I thought it would be a good time to go over some of the key contributors, some of the reasons for concerns. Also, I wanted to talk about, could Brandon Sproat make this rotation? And what exactly do we have in Jose Siri? We're going to talk about all that and more on Mostly Mets. Welcome to another episode of Mostly Mets. My name is Jimmy Mack, and today I'm going to be breaking down this past week of spring training. We did this video last week for really the first week of games. Now I want to talk about this week that we just had. First, I'm going to talk about some of the winners, some of the players who really performed well this past week. And I think we have to really start with Jose Siri. Jose Siri had 3 home runs this last week. He's looked really good at the plate. Now, he's a guy who, when he first came over from Tampa, we were told and we saw that he was a great fielder, great center fielder, but he was not a great hitter, right? He has some pop. He could always hit home runs. He's got some speed, but he's never really been a contact guy. He doesn't have good bat-to-ball skills necessarily. He relies on mistakes, and when he sees a mistake, he hits it out. But he's never been a guy who's you can rely on to get a big hit. This last week of spring training, he's looked really good. He's obviously got the 3 home runs. I think he's got like 7 RBIs. And he's really just looked like a completely different hitter at the plate. He's walking a little bit more. I think he only has 1 strikeout this spring. And to me, that's a huge improvement. So we'll see what that brings, and we'll talk about him a little bit more later on in the video, but right now he looks really good, and maybe we got something in him. We'll see. The next guy we're going to talk about is someone that Mets fans had completely given up on, and I've talked about him before on this channel, but it's Brett Baty. Brett Baty has looked really good throughout all of spring training. Over the last week, I think he has a home run, he has a couple doubles, he's getting at least 1 or 2 hits basically every time he gets on the field. He's looked like a completely different player. Now, we've seen this before. We all know what he does in the minors. We all know what he does in spring training. And then once he gets to the majors and faces the real tough pitching, he has a problem. So it's a wait and see on Baty still for me. I'm not completely buying into the hype. I know a lot of people are. But you have to think, guy's still 25 years old. He still was a first-round pick. He's a guy who has a lot of talent. So I don't think we should give up on him yet, but I don't know that we should necessarily believe all this Baty hype just quite yet. The third guy I want to talk about is the guy that we should believe all the hype about, and we've seen it already through the first couple weeks of spring, but it's Juan Soto. Juan Soto, obviously, in his first at-bat in spring training, hit a home run, and he hit another one this last week. Now, that comes with not having a lot of at-bats. He has less than 10 at-bats this spring, and he's already got 2 home runs, so that's a great thing to see. You can see why he got paid a lot of money. He's just one of those guys that's going to hit no matter what. You could say whatever you want about his defense and his base running and all that. He's going to hit. And you see that already this spring. What more can you say? Great player, and he's been as advertised so far this spring. The next guy I'm going to talk about is a pitcher, obviously, and Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes is a huge part of the Mets' success this season. He's either going to be a huge part of the success or a huge part of the failure. They put a lot of eggs in the Clay Holmes basket. This is one guy that I really liked that the Mets signed because I really didn't see a downside to it. Now, did I also think they were going to go out and sign more pitchers? Sure. But I think they really believe in Clay Holmes as a starter. And so far this spring, he's shown that that's a good decision. We understand it's spring training. Anything can happen. Results now don't guarantee anything in the future. But so far, with 6 innings and 3 this last week, he has not given up a run. He is getting ground ball outs. He's looked really good. I don't know that we really have another starting pitcher, aside from maybe Senga, who has the stuff that he does, right? We all like Manaea because he's a crafty lefty. I don't think we've seen a pitcher like Holmes who has this type of stuff for a couple years now with the Mets. So I don't know that he's going to be an ace for this team. I don't know that he's going to win a Cy Young, but so far he looks really good. He's at least looking like a really good number 2 or number 3 starter, and if that continues, the Mets can have a very successful season. He's proving a lot of doubters wrong. Like I said, again, it's only spring training. I understand that. But you could just see it when he pitches. He has great stuff. And if he keeps the ball on the ground and he keeps it in the infield instead of it getting hit for home runs, he's going to be fine. His control has always been an issue, but so far this spring in 6 innings, he has 1 walk as opposed to, I think, 5 strikeouts. So, hey, looks pretty good to me. The next guy is another pitcher who they piggybacked with Clay Holmes so far, is Max Kranick. Kranick has looked really good. He's a guy who is really fighting for the last bullpen spot. He's kind of a swingman, a multi-inning reliever, and he has a good live fastball. He's looked really good so far in 4 innings. He hasn't given up a run. He's held team scoreless for 4 innings so far. I know his first start, he did have, a couple guys on base, and he was able to get some double plays to end innings. But this last time he pitched, he looked great. So another guy who is overperforming, and maybe we found something there. Maybe he's going to be a really good member of that bullpen, especially as kind of a long man, swing man kind of guy. It would be great. Some other guys so far, we've got Brandon Sproat. Obviously the Mets' number 1 prospect. He's a guy who kind of flew through the minor leagues last year, struggled once he got to AAA. He's kind of explained that it's because he wasn't being aggressive enough, and it almost kind of overwhelmed him to be at the AAA level, and he's learned from that, and he looked really good in his 1 start. It was only 2 innings, no hits, no walks, 1 strikeout, but he looked good. He has a good hard fastball, and he doesn't look overmatched, right? For only having 1 year of professional baseball experience, he doesn't look like he doesn't belong. He looks like he belongs in the majors. So, very impressed by him in his 1 inning. Got a lot of ground balls. I think 4 of his 6 outs were by ground ball. Then he had 1 strikeout and I think 1 fly ball. Great to see a young guy do that. And it looked like he had good control. So, signs are good so far from Brandon Sproat. The other young pitcher who pitched really well was Tidwell. He had an immaculate inning, which is a very rare feat in baseball. 9 pitches, 3 strikeouts. Against major league hitters too, it wasn't just backups or bench guys. There was some major leaguers thrown in there. And he didn't have the best performance his first start. I think he went 1 inning and gave up a couple runs. He didn't look all that great. But he really impressed. You had Jeff Passan tweeting about him in an immaculate inning, and he just looked really good. So I think for him, you're not going to see him in the majors to start the season, but he profiles more as a reliever down the road from what I'm hearing. He has started, but they think of him probably more as a reliever going forward. So we'll see what happens with him. But he has good stuff. He throws 100 miles an hour. He just looks like another good piece that the Mets have coming up. Another guy who not a lot of people are talking about, but quietly is having a very good spring training, and that is Jesse Winker. Winker, obviously, he was there last year, had a big moment in the playoffs, had a couple big moments throughout the season, but really he never hit for the Mets like he did when he was with Washington. So I was always a little bit concerned about him being really the primary DH option, especially the left-handed DH option. But so far this spring, he's handled it really well. He hit a double off of a left-hander, and he's just been very consistent from the beginning. You look at the box score, he's getting a hit every time he plays, and that's important. He's going to be important for this team. If their offense is going to be as good as we think, we need a good year out of Jesse Winker. He's not going to be a guy who hits 35 home runs, but if he can hit 280 with 15 to 20 home runs and 65, 70 RBIs, that lengthens our lineup a lot. He can really help turn the Mets from a really good lineup to a great lineup. So these are all good signs coming from Winker. And the last guy I want to talk about is a guy who I'm expecting a big season out of, and that's Pete Alonso. Alonso has looked completely different this spring, especially over the last week. He's gotten a couple doubles. He's hitting the ball to right center, which is what you want to see from Alonso. He's always at his best when he's going the other way. And he's not striking out, and he's got like 5 walks. So he's obviously not just flailing at anything he sees, which was his problem last year. He was swinging at everything. He just looks like he's locked in, and he looks like he might have made an adjustment to his swing, and he looks really good. Now, as I've said several times, spring training, we don't know that's going to continue, but when you look at Alonso and what he's doing now, it's not like he's just hot right now. He's completely changed his approach from the last year or even the last 2 years, going the other way, not swinging at anything off the plate. And he could have a huge year, and that's what it looks like he's going to do now. Like if he continues this way and he keeps hitting the ball to the opposite field and keeps walking and taking his walks, you're going to see a big year out of Pete Alonso if this continues. Next, what I want to talk about is some of the people who maybe aren't performing like we thought they would. All right, before I get into this next part, I just want to say if you enjoy this type of content and you want to see more, please subscribe, hit that like button, give me a comment. I'm pretty active in my comments, so I generally answer back if you ask a question or have a thought. So yeah, now I want to get into the guys who have not been so hot to start the spring. Not a lot of them, to be honest with you. Not a lot of important guys, right? So there hasn't been a lot of guys who you expect to be on the opening day roster or play a big part this season who haven't performed well, or at least haven't performed to their average or a decent average. There's plenty of minor league pitchers or minor league hitters that you can point to and say, oh, they're having a bad spring. It's not going to matter for the team this season. So the only guy that I'm really concerned about that's going to play a major role on this team is Paul Blackburn. He's not looked good at all, right? In his last start, just yesterday, he gave up 4 runs, 3 hits, couple walks, no strikeouts. He just didn't look good, right? And the game wasn't televised, so we didn't see it, but just that line does not look good. He also did not perform well in his first start. And Carlos Mendoza said after the game, he's not concerned so far with the outcome of the game. He's not concerned about how he pitches necessarily in the game. It's just about him getting stretched out, getting healthy, and hopefully being ready to be on the opening day roster, and he's not worried about the results at the moment. Okay, I understand that, but he's going to be very important to this team. With the injuries that the Mets currently have to Montas and Minaya, Blackburn was part of that depth, and now he's right in the rotation. He has to be there. They're going to rely on him to be good. And I just don't know. I'm just not a big Blackburn fan. I don't think he's going to be that good. He's one guy I don't really believe in. So I hope he proves me wrong. So far in spring, it hasn't looked good, but it's still spring. We'll see what happens as we get further into spring and into the regular season. But so far, results have not been good for Blackburn, and it is concerning. Other than that, there's obviously guys who have underperformed in the early part of spring training, but nothing that's going to really concern you. The first guy who gets off to a slow start every spring and every April is Francisco Lindor. This is nothing new. He's a slow starter. It always happens. Still don't love to see it, obviously, but it's so early. He's only had 11 at-bats. He's 2 for 11. It's not like he's been terrible. He hasn't shown any of his power. He hasn't hit a double. He hasn't hit a home run. He's just been a couple singles. But I'm not concerned, and I don't think anyone else should be. This is how he starts off. It takes him a while to get going. Hopefully, he gets his slump out of the way in spring and starts off the season hot. We'll see. But not very concerned. Another guy who didn't get off to the greatest start but has picked it up over the last couple days is Jeff McNeil. I understand most fans, or a big portion of the fans, can't stand Jeff McNeil anymore and want him gone and want him on the bench or want him traded. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be the starting second baseman. I know people love Acuna and they love, Brett Beatty now, but Jeff McNeil is going to be the starting second baseman. it's basically already been said. And this whole talk about he needs to be on the bench, he also makes almost $15 million this year. He's not going to be sitting on the bench. If he fails, I believe he will have a short leash. If he's batting .220 in May, yeah, he's probably going to be replaced. But he's going to get the first shot at the job. It's just a fact. And if you don't like it, I understand, but it's just, you're going to have to live with it. It is what it is, and that's going to be how it is. That's not my opinion. That's fact. They've basically already said it. So he did start off slow. He was hitting a lot of balls to the warning track. He just wasn't able to really get the ball down. He's hitting the ball. He's connecting with the ball. He's just not getting him to fall where he wants him to. He hit a double down the line yesterday. Obviously, that's vintage McNeil. That's what he does. That's what you want to see him do going forward, and get away from trying to hit home runs and just be the Jeff McNeil slap hitter, doubles guy that he was before. So I'm not concerned about McNeil. I know he's been down the last couple of years. I have no issue with McNeil playing second base. He's a good baseball player. I don't know if he'll ever win another batting title again, but I think he's good enough to keep second base on a good team. That's just my opinion on McNeil. Another guy who, while the stats might not be bad, but I expected to really try to step up to the challenge, right? Try to maybe force the Mets to make a difficult decision, and that's Acuna. I think he's had a couple hits, couple singles. He just doesn't look, he hasn't looked like what everyone kind of thinks he is, right? I'm not a huge Acuna believer. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think he's ever going to be an all-star type player. I think a lot of people get a little bit, because of his name, people think he's a lot better than he is. I know that the Mets prospect rankings came out today, and he dropped down. I think he's like 8 or 9. He's not the guy who everybody makes him out to be. He plays great defense. He has great speed. He's never performed in the minors. I know people say my problem with Acuna is everyone wants to say, forget about the numbers in the minors. The only numbers that matter are the 2 weeks that he spent in the majors last year. And it was great. We don't make the playoffs last year without Acuna. 100%. He had a great 2 weeks, a great 10 days while Lindor was hurt. But I can't discount years in the minor leagues for 10 to 14 games in the majors. It just doesn't work that way. Now, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he becomes a superstar, and I eat my words, and I'll love it. I'll admit that I'm wrong. But my personal opinion is this guy, maybe he starts, maybe he's a starting level player, but he's always going to be one of those guys who I don't see him lasting long term. I don't see him being a star. I don't see him being an all-star caliber player. Maybe he makes an all-star team once or twice. I don't see what everyone else in Mets fandom sees. I think he's a good player, but he's not what everybody makes him out to be. And he really had the chance to prove otherwise so far this spring, and so far he's not. Now, he did get hit by a pitch yesterday, or 2 days ago, left the game. They don't think it's serious, but who knows, he might miss a little bit of time because of it. That's not his fault. You can't blame him for that, obviously. But it just furthers the fact that McNeil is going to be starting over Acuna, and Acuna didn't really do anything to change that. He didn't try to make the decision hard for the Mets so far. Now, next 10 days he can go off and hit 5 home runs and steal 10 bases or something. I don't know. He could be spectacular, and then we're all kind of sitting here going, why do we have Jeff McNeil starting? But as it sits right now, he's done nothing to set himself apart. And while the numbers might not be bad, it just, to me, he doesn't jump off the page at me. All right, now I want to go a little bit deeper into Jose Siri. Jose Siri is a guy who, when he came to the Mets, as I said, we all thought or saw that he's just a defensive center fielder. He's a great defensive center fielder who doesn't offer you much offense other than some pop. But what he's showing so far in this spring is kind of a different approach, right? You always saw he's a free swinger. If you look at his numbers over his career, I think he has like one walk for every 5 strikeouts. He's just a strikeout machine. He had like 400 at bats one year and had 170 something strikeouts. He swings at everything. He's a free swinger. If you look at him, he's comparable kind of to like a Javi Baez with probably less talent, right? But that's the type of player he is. He's an all or nothing kind of guy, and it's more nothing than all. But what he said coming into spring is he worked on his approach this year. He worked on becoming more of a contact hitter, getting more hits, having a higher average, getting on base more, not just being a home run or nothing kind of guy. And maybe what we're seeing in spring is a result of that effort. Maybe he is actually going to be better than we thought. Do I think he's going to be an all-star and hit 40 home runs and, bat 300? No, he's not. He's never going to be that guy. But if he can give you Gold Glove caliber center field play while hitting 240 or 250 and hitting 20 to 25 home runs and knocking in 60 RBIs, sign me up any day. That lengthens out the Mets lineup so much that now your 9-hitter is also a threat. Most teams don't have that. You go from being a very good offense to being a great offense, right? There's a lot of question marks on this team. Is Alvarez going to hit? Is McNeil going to return to form? Is Vientos going to continue what he did last year? And Siri, is he going to give you anything? That wasn't even really a question. You just kind of expected nothing. You just expected greatness in center field and no bat. If he's able to provide you a bat, all those other questions become kind of easier to answer because it doesn't matter as much, right? You have another offensive threat in Siri. Like I said, I'm not claiming he's going to be an all-star this year. I'm not claiming that he's going to be all of a sudden the center fielder of the future. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think he will have a big year. And by big year, I mean he's going to hit 230, 240, somewhere between 230 and 250 with 25 home runs. I think that's a big year out of a center field position that really you got not much out of last year at all. And you didn't expect much from it at all this year. So I think Juan Soto might be having a very positive impact on him. You see them joking around. You see them driving around in a golf cart together. Why wouldn't he learn from Juan Soto? Who's better to learn from as a hitter than Juan Soto? So I think Soto could be having a very positive impact on him. And I really do. I expect I wouldn't say a big year. I wouldn't say a superstar year, but a really good year out of Siri. It's just what I think. I look at him and I say there's something there. There's something that hasn't been tapped into. He looks like a baseball player. I don't know. There's something you can just look at some guys and be like, they should be better than what they are. Will he be? I wouldn't bet the farm on it, but I personally think he's going to have a really good year. I'd like to know what you guys think. Put it in the comments. Let me know what you think. Tell me I'm completely wrong. Tell me that you think so as well. But I'd like to know what you think. All right, now I want to get into something that's causing a bit of an argument with people on X. And Met fans have opinions on it one way or the other, pretty strong opinions. And that is whether Brandon Sproat should be considered for a rotation spot when the Mets go north. If you asked me a week ago, I would have said he absolutely should not be in the major leagues. He needs more seasoning in the minors. He needs to show that he can perform at AAA before he can come up. But now with all the injuries that the Mets have to Minaya and Montas and just really having no faith in Blackburn, I think there has to be a conversation about it at this point. I understand you don't want to rush someone before they're ready and maybe stunt their growth or stunt their career. But if he goes out and pitches the rest of this spring like he did the other day, I don't think there's a way you can keep him off the roster. I don't think there's a way that if he pitches strong throughout the spring that you can look him in the eye and say, Paul Blackburn is better than you. or Griffin Canning is better than you, or Tyler McGill is better than you. You can't do that. If you want to win, you have to put the best players out there. And if he is giving you the best opportunity to go out and win, I think you have to put him out there. I can completely understand where the Mets organization would say it's better for him to go to the minors and learn more and show that he can do it, and we'll see him at some point during the season. It's understandable. But if you have championship aspirations, if you are a team that has a prime Lindor, a prime Soto, a prime Alonso, a budding superstar in Mark Vientos, how can you not put the best players out there? That's my own opinion on the matter, right? Now, if Sproat goes out there in his next start and gives up 4 runs, and then the start after that gives up 3 runs, then I'm going to say absolutely keep him in the minors. He's not ready. He's not ready to go. But if he continues to dominate, he has to put himself in the conversation. It has to at least be a conversation. It's not something I expect to happen. This is not, if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say it's probably a 15% chance or so that he ends up in the rotation to start the season. But if he continues to perform the way he is, I think that percentage goes up and up. Because you cannot put out inferior players when you have a better option waiting. So that's my take really on Sproat. I don't expect him to be in the rotation, but if he continues going the way he is, I don't think there's a way you can keep him out of the rotation. All right, guys, that's really all I got today. Another week of spring training down. Wasn't a ton of stuff going on this week. Obviously, there's always ups and downs in the spring. We're about 3.5 weeks away from the season, which is getting exciting. We're getting close, less than a month now, and we'll be playing, we'll be watching real games that matter. So, can't wait. And if you could, like I said before, subscribe if you're still here. Give me a like. Comment what you think about my opinions and what your opinions are. Let me know. And until next time, let's go Mets.